Hello, America. This is breaking news, but this is because we're using the hyper evidential. What government is about. Government is about the three branches of government, how they are manifested as value, has to do with what became abridged scientific reception of it in semi ancient times. The importance of understanding that fact is also simultaneously relevant to where and to how America's founders and other modern countries' founders had to counter extort the other founders. Because already the names of our human species body of names at individual, group difference slash S, excuse me, and simultaneously, for example, as the value of all voicings, all syntax regarding humanity. See, everyone has only heard theater and or hyper theater only as criminal insidiousness nature. What's the difference between theater and hyper theater? It's the difference between the simultaneous and the hyper simultaneous, where and how a species body is a simultaneous nature relative to the individual, where and how the individual is a sequence slash simultaneous nature, and the other sequence it per way to examine how it is manifest. But also all the other, it's like other bodies, other species bodies have two eyes. There is a shared identity that is not them and is not us. The giraffe has black pupils and whites of eyes, but it doesn't have the halo around the eyes, which is exception nature. We have the same color eyes or different. But while we have the same color eyes and different color eyes at the same time, which is where and how it is complete. Nature itself shows us the difference between criminal insidiousness natures of positive treatments, not just negative. And see, this is as a system that is as valuable as the Constitution unabridged. Our founders, if we actually bring truth always, not leaving out the slightest exception, not valuing the slightest exception left out. Because if you do that, you're using the location slash S, the way the breaching method singular used all location singular everywhere the species body was, and it sustained what it was doing without anyone realizing. While they were defending themselves as fact treatment nature, they were using the identities of the sciences, which is in parallel with our identity. Where how just like your identity, every part of your body individually grouped and together has a semi-nature relationship to your complete identity. And your complete identity, like the other complete identities of the other species bodies, semi-nature relationship to its, and also know how they have differences, distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously. But again, there is another identity of simultaneous nature, because it is not the other species bodies that invented our species, and it is not our species body that invented theirs. In other words, there's a difference between what is revealed, and even if something is made up, demonstrably, this volume slash S science as reception of the increasing value slash S more than one of the discernment, the scientific value of the discernment of this hyper simultaneous, that which has, again, male, female, ages, areas, sexes, things that affect reception of how, why we have difference slash S, and how and why we have the word humanity. See, it means from nowhere, come out of from nowhere, where we are fact treatment nature. The same way evolution's fruits and gifts come to physics, the ancients would check, is this criminally insidious, is nature positive? Is this really? And that too, even if it wasn't, would show them. There's one identity that answers all our questions. Because its identity, to the extent we could discern, it comes with equally valuably increasing two other natures of itself. One as its identity of relationship to itself. Another is the value of that. When we examine how value is nature / nature as value, and the opposite sequence / simultaneous nature. Because there's one identity of relationship to itself, where and how it is not juxtaposed with matter. Is distinctly an identity of relationship to itself, where it is juxtaposed with matter. And it is distinct identity of relationship to itself, where and how that is juxtaposed, where and how one identity of forever nature is making more of itself by making more temporary / lasting identity / IES of forever nature. So we could observe plant life through the microscope and see cell body, the cell nucleus. It's easier to discern how there is the main pattern of a cell body, like the cell nucleus, a cell body of a cell, a tomato cell, which professors give and teachers give to students to look through the microscope at, because it is, as most things are when you make them transparent. I mean, when you may take thin slices of them, you could observe where they are transparent and not. In other words, you could observe to an extent there's a cell body, but there's a cell nucleus. But it's better to understand that as its identity of relationship to itself, and the value / S of that manifest where and how the cell wall / S are manifest, and where and how there is reception of the water and its elements, and there is reception of the gases and its elements. The ancients appreciated Earth's special difference in their own as our own, as the human species body. Other than what became abridged could afford to have discerned. Before and while that was being realized, everyone didn't realize they were blaming other things, others, or selves, even when correctly, the causes of it exactly the way the breaching method wanted and needed them to blame things. So self-valuing rolls with itself. For example, they make people have naive responses. The uses of the word control, for example, overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and the branches of government as they were manifest before our founders were born, with slavery entrenched north and south. It was simultaneously apart with a torturer's method and a whole bunch of extortion means and methods of everyone's own through their own. And then again, through others. Also further a while as their own, because we are our own as the species volume science. That is the possession / hyperpossession of itself, which is distinct because Earth it will only stay positive onto all parts of space nature. as its body, space slash existence, as its body greater than and more finite than space slash existence. English in ancient languages had been revealed to teach this, not as abridged languages and jobs, therefore, as ground conjunctions, as named uses of the names of the sciences. Tactical terror from what could afford to defend itself, the breaching method knew, and to have names used properly with short words, let alone their protraction. Therefore, let alone their protraction. So truths are used for lies with the summaries of history. The only way to speak about American history, there's a difference between the Constitution and the Constitution Unabridged. Further demonstrably, there's a difference between that and the Constitution Unabridged and hyper. Additionally, the value of Marbury versus Madison, which is also conjunctive to me there are hyper-evidential means to discern how originally instilled the differences between overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and the three branches of government, and the many countries shared here and there, all at the same time in the insidiousness of the logic of people A through Z. For example, where they pretend voting has to do with why and how they don't follow mandated law, where and how they don't, and where and how they keep blamed on other things, others ourselves. The causes of that, which is increasingly our own, as collusions, including how against themselves, even our most sophisticated names. Because since before everyone was born, this has been stacking fake things into databases. This has been keeping descriptions, of course, in other words, the bodies of companies' names too. We aren't supposed to leave out how the company, we're supposed to counter the companies, where and how our founders left us to get to this phase. There are truths where they made them hurt each other if they don't come on board. So the North and the South were still entrenched roles with slavery, including how fact nature slavery. And that's recorded where and how they have other communicated for our founders who had to counter extort to other founders, and who only had means to it because sickly distinctly North and South, but also sickly non-distinctly, there were crazy human fact nature breaching method laws that had already been sustained, collusions, as criminal insidious natures of branches of government, and as roles with the uses of the difference of that between them and the overt criminal enterprises, the private ones, hundreds of nations, and insidiousness of A through Z with equality / IES of fact nature, were are weaponized against the hyper-native. That's why it's showing us the increasing importance of the discernment of how indigenous populations are sickly still prevented their means to accord with that which already is accord with them. We all want this to help them. All voices who pretend other, they jump in, pretend other, and or have the exceptions relative to where and how they have people who answer phones since before computers, PC computer, in other words. And that how computers can do functions fast. They have them involved with sequence shifts, evidence planting, where and how it is relative. In other words, not all victims, every science. Forgiveness is because the identity of correlation nature is supposed to not leave out a human fact, human nature breaching method with all identities of law formally as a fake difference, where overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and worse, is juxtaposed, and that was sustained so no one could be able to discern how fluent through our nations, everywhere the human species body is, everyone could self-value roles, giving more power to in the world. To it effectively kept and keeps all database relationships, not because before it had complete possession of all sides in criminal and civil cases, victims and their advocates and their courts appointed advocates, names in the hallway, names of the court, switching sequences, things into the databases, as names who had timed roles at the crime scenes with overt criminal and there with overt criminal enterprises, private ones in hundreds of nations. See, all these roles with uses of keeping things blamed on other things, others, ourselves, with nature has been demonstrating as the Constitution is unabridged. Other is being and has been communicated for our founders. The mass communicated for them. They asked for us to understand how they had to counter extort the other founders, because there was the breaching method of tortures and extortion upon everyone, and we're supposed to address this honestly, and not address how they were sickly our founders, again the ones who had to counter extort the other founders, and everyone had to hide their actual motivations for it because of the method to measure and maintain everyone, the method of which had all formal, and again, employed different. Nature communicates why we have the same eyes and different color eyes at the same time, while we have eyes like other species' bodies, even like bugs, and how they have consciousness. Nature teaches us answers where scientific proofs and the language, the syntax behind it. The only way it got away with defending itself is because where there is unity by the sciences and where there is independence of the sciences, it has only been known since some ancient times, tactically ulterior, from where and how, that which is hyper additional to which is that which is temporary, which is individually grouped and together, simultaneous, slash hyper simultaneous. So there's this part of us that that is the value of what has already been spoken, but that needs to keep coming is active. And there's the part that we know is beyond our reach, but it's already value here. We only know to an extent, though. And we know there's a breaching method in place. But everyone missed how everything that breaching method, what it was doing. Before it made everyone have a hyper additional motivations for their appearances of roles with it, because nature is going to continually demonstrate everyone's roles with it. Correlation doesn't leave out the branches of government, the overt criminal enterprises, the private ones, the nations of the human species body as names, individually grouped and together now as groupings, now as voicings for humanity that are only criminal and citizens' natures of positive treatment and or negative treatment and or names treatment, including the names black and white black people. Yeah. See how the breaching method has been left out, just like this natural communication, the answers. The reason, so the reason correlation nature uses reason, ways simultaneously greater than, more finite, and more active than any grouping, even if the whole species body agrees together. to lie about the past. Nature is going to demonstrate with negative value nature progressions acts nature. Nature shows that a breaching method measured and maintained. Things like criminal enterprises countered tactically wrong to have that defended effectively. Where and how it put these natural grouping differences and natural differences like black the meaning of black as a scientific value, the nature of evidence over which you research. We have black pupils, white eyes, we have the hyper evidential. See, the evidential has been gotten away. In other words, they have all sides in criminal and civil cases. Then again, as the ones interstates involved with this, they're not legitimately with unmarked police forms and with the natures of criminal justice and their roles of hundreds of countries, the difference between all ages and natures of campuses. Nature revealed the republic and its campuses and how to check where and how its identity is also present all around us. Its identity is corrupt. That's why they're in the suburbs. There are no more worms in the soil. That's why for years I put things in the soil. There's still barely any worms. I still used to be able to walk anywhere, put a shovel down. Different times of the day, you'll find more than one in each shovel, and you put it right back. You don't even see it. You can do it. The worms, there always used to be worms in a pond near my house, and dead on the bottom of the pond. Bugs going on top of it. That's all gone, and that had already been going out, and that was to take it out required use of people that support, initiatives to save things. Because only once we have criminal and seditious natures of positive treatments with fact treatments, negative treatments, not just negative treatments, or negative treatments, or names treatments used for sequence shifts as collusions. They have between each database relationship before the sciences were manifest and while they were becoming manifest. Already the databases and that were part of it. But already it knew that itself, the breaching method, would continually be demonstrated with the nature of every subject. As every negative value nature progression acts in nature, the people would have to counter as fact treatment nature. Even if they ignore it, like black and white, including if someone's speaking about it or not. This is why we have to use the hyper invisible but still discernible. It is the reason there are 5 names for the verb. For example, in why and how there are 3. Any subject you could pick. You say if you think of hyper simultaneous, and or your version of that, what you want to call everything at once. See, everything at once has tied to it an identity of relationship to itself. It has the only increasing value of that if we observe. But we can't observe while entertaining uses of the names of the sciences. Let alone at the same time, too, the names of the human species body and the names of the sciences. While quality and natures of debate, use of names still has collusions, and with exception nature, employed by the breaching method to be used, tactical terror, from the rest of nature for its uses of exception nature. There is a function slash S by emotions. If someone describes their own emotions or the emotions of others to hide the quality of the system, it's so someone could and to hide the because they're using systems other than the one that is hyper native, hyper simultaneous. It's the value of why how if slave details left out or made up or simultaneous values are left out or made up, someone could discern. Someone lying like an expert. So, but this breaching method shows our experts. It was already raised, communicating other things for our founders than they communicated to have communicated for themselves. Where and how truths like it was about American Revolution was about witch trials. American Revolution was about pamphlets. The motivations that are told behind that. Those motivations were controlled on a number of levels that were also employed by the breaching method that knew that people would have to seek to be independent and it had the laws against that. It knew that people would have to seek to be unity. Had laws for that because it needs natures of criminal seriousness, natures of unity, syntactically defended, preemptively too, and or of independence. It needs quality aspects and nature of debate that can't defend themselves and afford ourselves defended at the same time. Makes people be mean to each other, call each other names. Makes it so that hyper invisible is not allowed to lead. Because everyone has these hyper intelligent means. People want to keep speaking for smart, dishonestly. Those same people that won't follow mandated law with child abusers, leaders of the kids, still as roles with their patients and criminals before they got caught are formal identities of law. Forgiveness is not to keep going back and forth, in other words, and leaving out the breaching method. They have timed roles with overt criminal enterprises and private ones. These are names on off the World Trade Center and on off the locations next to it that since they were kids in Manhattan, New York, New York. Now, since they were kids, they were involved with people intercities, Connecticut, who act while others take picture. Time they look over. Make it look like people are lying if they say they don't know people after. These are people who have been fabricating audio and video transcripts on and off all ages and natures of campuses, on and off insurance locations, all ages and natures of investigations, of investigators. See, World Trade Center has roles with psychiatry, with the military, foreign and domestic, also with KKK themed, black themed names involved with federal evidence is crimes, federal rules of evidence is crimes, and roles with use of that singular, but also other apparent, which is also relevant because that's being used to screen what is increasingly recorded. So Central Connecticut State University has a whole bunch of people associated with a former director of FBI, Robert Luskin, involved also with a whole bunch of people tied to him as a Detective Samuda, and the family of members of co-defendants of a former director of the FBI, various natures of federal criminals before that, who before that was found out, they'd also been roles with predicate acts, timed roles, planting fake at corners of buildings and streets, planting fake exceptions of knowing to people, with a Joshua Julian, who's one of the ones also involved with people with whiting forensics through time and military, Coast Guard, involved with identity theft, fraud, slavery. They attach family members to fake communications with family members, fake ties and natures of ties to other people. The exceptions used criminally foreign influence more by themselves or the other foreign differentially. These are interbranch who are recorded since they were kids, criminally foreign influence. Roles with predicate acts with facts, tricks in the databases, also with mayors and their neighbors, and roads along names along roads and routes. Also, where and how they have wire crime acts and methods manifest because the uses of the databases was a collusion slash S that was maintained hyper additionally from the original use slash S of the location slash S that never went away. Where and how to properly description of Boolean logic and of exceptions is actually manifest. See that the sciences experts have been using they've been using self-valued abridged abridged identities of sciences used as evidences just because it's the only thing known. Where and how the word unabridged is and word the word amendments. Where and how these words are manifest. You guys left out the increasing in value. Talk questions and answers regarding American history and other histories. The human fact, human nature breaching method that measured and maintained self-value use slash S of the identity the sciences share with other communicated for itself. And that is locked in for where and how it got away with it so long in our faces, communicating other for our founders. Like, oh, it says George Washington had roles with slavery. No. It said we're supposed to address the tortures of and the extortion of George Washington, honestly. Shows he was fact, human nature enslaved, being measured and maintained like our other founders, whose not collusions with the human fact, human nature breaching method that had the worst forms of slavery entrenched sickly distinctly north and south, as employments tactical ulterior from their natural meaning, per the function singular, which caused again all these hyper additional causes of negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures to hide behind, because it knew nature is going to continue to demonstrate a breaching method is associated with human fact, human nature, quality aspects of nature. All this time we've had weapons and wars. We have had some powerful passions and emotions pretended. And how they get away with it, then the people die, and no one's gonna fight with people pretending they're legitimately behind soldiers going to their death. When the whole time, now we have the means to transverse the earth, but we're still with suburbs tactically denatured. So while the negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures were being caused by the breaching method and by nature at the same time too, though, demonstrating it simply distinctly against everyone. See, it employed that left out, the positive. While it was making the only means to cause positive value nature progressions, acts, and natures more and more, if people were going to self-value roles with criminal and insidiousness natures of positive value nature progressions, acts, and nature. Means to cause positive value nature progressions, acts, and nature. Acts like predicate acts with facts. So I'm not a lawyer. Former standing chairperson on the Racketeering Influence and Corrupt Organization Act, Robert Luskin. His co-defendants, their neighbors, increasingly involve planting evidences with foreign and domestic, including judges and their family members, extended family members. Each age of correlation nature, there's the self-value roles timed with overt criminal enterprises, private ones. They want and need the breach of method wants and needs them to keep it personal, so they prevent people from going on paper legitimately. And so forgiveness is for all sides. See, if we just allow that quality of fact human nature, oh, there's hundreds of cases, then you have people. In other words, they've been fabricating. In other words, all the things would be solved. All the mistakes would be solved. They have the collusions with the people running the jails at the crime scenes before they caught their people, and they're torturing those people to hide what they were roles with them with since before that, and the news at the same time, planting evidences, changing evidences, lying about the outcomes of legal cases. They're planting it, and then oh, well, look here, this, and then they have time treatments in cases. They're putting fake evidences. They're also changing and totally fabricating audio and video transcripts. New Britain Superior Court, Hartford courts, they affect the confessions to me from their families, also as the ones involved with foreign and domestic military who didn't know. Also, Wethersfield military recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. They were one of the ones who were involved with an O'Brien family and a Cololo family. I never saw a Cololo family on Central Connecticut State University, but the Wethersfield police said the name Cololo. And there's a Bob Chase who said the name Phil Cololo is one of the ones involved with falsified 5 police reports. What I call them doing worse with the principal upskirt nature in prison since before that, and with the people associated with those prisons. These are also names with Sandy Hook campuses, including a prison there. I caught involved with camp with a whole bunch of people tied to locations tied to the doctors of Adam Lanza and of those schools. You know, they're making everyone and their family members get involved with fake conversations with other people, fabricating audio and video transcripts, fake emails. WFSB and WTMH have roles with a principal sex offender, other principal child abuser, who's also involved with other natures of digital crimes with the Facebook page of New Britain Superior Court, with passion crimes as collusions with people, as demonstrations and confirmations, as people with Hartford Court confessed, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. People from the Britain Court influenced them to roles with predicate acts on off West Hartford locations. And as people who've been doing it interbranch Wethersfield through time, all along Route 3, there are people who went out of their way to make fake exceptions. I never had a conversation with Robert Rodriguez on Route 3. I was it was demonstrated to me roles with people from Central Connecticut State University with the intelligence community, and with former director of the FBI Robert Luskin, who's involved with Washington names, and with Florida names further involved with the World Trade Center attack, and with the World Trade Center attack themed predicate acts and child abuses of WFSB. They also have wire crimes with their phones, wire crime methods with their phones, and with the social media, as collusions with interbranch with the social media. Also, there are a whole bunch of people tied to a Trantolo and his projects and work, and people that employed for him have roles with child offenders, other natures of federal criminals, all along Route 3 and with the network locations, placements of ad companies. There are courts with their family members that have been needing to hide lipoaggressions because they have roles with all kinds of natures of sick things and tactical delusions. So they've been faking conversations to get away with the proofs of it. That's how they have roles with so many delusions when they speak about color and they leave out the breaching method, they pretend integrity spoke for the law anywhere. You guys are all victim predators slash hyper victim, hyper predators. And you smile or what? Uses of exception nature as fakes already. Otherwise, the answers would have been because nature shows the answers. Everyone wants nature's hyper-native identity relationship to itself. In other words, and this is all tactically denatured Earth. Shouldn't even have to debate someone about the importance of understanding why and how worms are not walking into the puddles every time it rains anymore. Worms are not present in the soil, even if you put years of effort into trying to get them back. Everything is tactically denatured. Everything, this breaching method is reliant upon other things, others, or self blamed down for what it caused historically. So it keeps that now because that values that having been. Because what summarizes history can't defend itself and afford discern. All that is discernible when held as values simultaneously is the Constitution unabridged and the value of Marbury versus Madison hyper additionally with this. So Interbranch switched names and forged names and as clicks since they were kids. Roles with predicate acts with facts, child abuse, as roles with timed roles, placements with children campuses and with elderly homes. And next the homes of people they know, the corners of the streets. This is a facts reception, identity reception, collusion slash S method, and though that body is sensed, even if that body is a majority. The second any human body hears about the black-white narrative and against the Native Americans, they know all kinds of answers for American history. Those that instead other people are sensed. In other words, correlation uses where they had no integrity, no difference. They have collusion with criminal foreign influences as the formal identities of law regarding Jim Crow laws. How could you explain what Jim Crow laws are about if we have not addressed, honestly, the tortures and the extortion of George Washington, which would have brought up the fact cheating nature, identity theft, fraud, slander method, not non-distinctly against everyone, where simultaneously, too, hyper additionally, the fact cheating nature, slavery of everyone was non-distinctly, but is also sickly distinctly for that. Effectively to measure and maintain even the worst victims of that used to sense and hurt anyone who's going to use that as evidence. Everyone's keeping that blame on other things other than themselves. I'll tell you, there is no white and there is no black. The one that is the one that has the black pupils, whites of eyes, whiter than any skin, woman with skin whiter than, everyone has the black pupils, whites of eyes for this. Nature answers our questions. It makes them too. See, but this breaching method exploits how nature works. Everyone, the ancients and the semi-ancients couldn't fathom how how anyone could get, or even a group, how they could get the rest of the species body to forget and not care about how they know how to cause positive value nature progressions acts. And nature's everywhere at once, means out of nowhere, where and how we are factory nature. And how to check if it's going to make that outcome and or to use it to reveal why not. See, but the difference between that and that too, we have to appreciate it relative to the simultaneous slash hyper simultaneous. Because then once we start measuring our things, See, programming is stealing from people because the agencies and their difference. They have roles with criminally foreign influence readings of statutes. Two, simultaneously relative. There are proofs that the agents that were with reports of on CNN, MSNBC, or Fox News. One of them reported people have been plotting to go against the governor. There are proofs that the people that helped the person set that up were involved with this, were how gotten away with. Only faked integrity behind passion speaking for the law and or for each of the sciences. The executive branch, the judicial branch, and the political branch have to be what they cannot be. And so we are supposed to appreciate exception nature, but not criminal insidiousness nature of that. See, the breaching method knew that and employed that as collusions, and the difference between them, corrupt, and interbranch. I watched the Judging Freedom channel of Judge Napolitano. So I like to watch that channel and his sources. He has a Colonel McGregor. And a lot of the time lately they've been speaking about Ukraine war and or what is reported as that. And it is relative because what Ritz trials are about, we know is about a bunch of liars that were pretending they were not liars. There's slavery entrenched. There was a breaching, human fact, human nature breaching method, a torturer's method, an extortion method against everyone, sickly distinctly. Now our founders told us to begin with honest fact treatments of the extortion of George Washington. But immediately up front, we have also the IQ tests are involved with this. Also, tactically delusions raw. Per the dictionary definition, I'm not a doctor. Delineate their delusions from their criminally foreign influence soul uses of location. Their roles with the World Trade Center attack, with torture since before it. As the ones as recorded, their uses of Facebook. All exceptions and exception nature that appear to be in demonstration of other are come with the demonstrations of the same thing. Don't forget the value of the sequence, what came first. Nature shows us the importance of not leaving this out. See how sequence / simultaneous nature is valued. This has been obfuscated, pretended to be complicated when it's simple, and pretended to be simple where it's complicated, but it's only complicated because the extensive that is conjunctive to truths that are being used for revelations rather than for lies. So we have black pupils, white survive. We have exceptions, exception nature. We have the same color as the different with the exceptions. The nature uses difference with reason in ways greater than and more finite than math could appreciate. Description of, per descriptions of math's understanding. Simultaneously, the law could not appreciate it. The predicate act is valued to discern a criminal insidiousness nature. A nature is a word for an identity, where how identity can be discerned as a relativity to positive and negative simultaneously. And further as an identity of value progression. And further as the value of that relative simultaneously / hyper simultaneously with a special difference. Not special difference, special difference. There's a big difference. See, Earth has an special difference. People who spoke for how and why we need wars, we got in the war, but people look this side, they look there, they'll have our founders self-valued, lied about by a breaching method, and everyone pretending they don't realize. If you look closer, you've been blaming other things other than yourselves for why too. You look closer, you guys are preventing mandated law. You look closer, all sides in criminal and civil cases, victims advocates appointed by the courts, names with the hallways of the courts, and the courts switching names, even women judges, roles with male child offenders, roles with male and female ones, also with overt criminal enterprises as the same names with the same cliques. When did there? Oh, it was the equal branches of government. There's no equality till there's unabridged. So please follow mandated law. I'll show you how to clean everything up. You got all the answers will come from nowhere. All the agreements, all the forgiveness. So you guys are pretending motivations of others as all communications locations like WFSB. Please fix the fake conversations with me. You have roles with the Saudi attackers and with the people who tortured them after, and with the names on and off Harvard Hospital involved with predicate acts, fake conversations with kids as foreign and domestic medical families, all along Route 3 with you, all along Elm Street and Rocky Hill with you. Please follow mandated law. Also, there's a Darth Vader, and there are the extended family members of the police forms on off the campuses like Trinity College and CCSU, who have roles with the names with wire crimes on my street and with their connected body dumping spots confessions and roles with predicate acts with names on off the Connecticut Judicial Branch offices and the Connecticut Corrections offices and military locations and their shooting ranges. In other words, and names next to campuses used to plant evidences, little tricks. You're in little magic tricks. You guys are gonna, but see, they're manifest because there are foreign involvements with it. And so when we start talking about it, you give them the means to adapt. That's why you're supposed to follow mandated law. Follow mandated law for the judges associated with Fox News. Let's go. And retired and standing. Get them on paper, one name in sequence. Get the New Britain Superior Court, Hartford courts on the paper. And the people that had the confessions before that, too. These are not even legal issues. Before the legal issues, they made up in passion crimes after that. I caught them before the World Center attack, planting evidences on West Hartford, all sides of criminal and civil cases, at deposition spots. The depositions, roles with the position of former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, and his co-defendants, and the Robert Chevry, the lawyer, involved with planting evidences with a whole bunch of names next to the state capitol of Connecticut and at the spots next to it through time as people on and off campuses putting predicate acts, little fake things, and they have principals respond to things they weren't even aware of. And they're doing tricks with the cameras too. Make sure you get them on paper. And I want a response for the principal's confessions and the other names I caught. And with the confessions of Robert Rodriguez involved with that, also with doctors or people with dentists. And this is before anyone knew I had beautiful teeth too, because they torture people with the thing, and they have fake conversations with me, which is the specific method of torture I'm speaking about, because these people had methods of torture roles since before we were born. Also, to use how if people will speak about it, then it makes it look like you had conversations with those people. These people have been using roles with the interbranch, putting fake things in databases with all sides in criminal and civil cases, the lawyers too, as names at the same time recorded how kept with areas of overt criminal enterprises and private ones. The Witness Protection Program is one of the people involved with a Faenza family and with a Fazina family, with a whole bunch of judges and prosecutors on the state judicial branch offices who are also involved with the boards of education and people on off Central Connecticut State University and at locations next to Trinity College. They're involved with the intelligence community, criminally foreign influence, overt criminal enterprise, and private ones, not legitimately with their acting professors and the departments at Central Connecticut State University. Has something to do with their roles with predicate acts with the families grouped too. Whereas the ones with overt criminal enterprises and private ones at the same time, these are also ones on off the World Trade Center, trade where they have trade agreements that can't be defended and afforded what is actually capable of being voiced as answers and as a means out of nowhere for everyone, let alone injunctive reliefs. Vaccines. I teach us things, but follow mandated law. Not for the people. See, people pretend they're following mandated law legitimately that have criminally foreign influence readings of statutes. Connecticut Interbranch has been switching names and forging names of people from New York City who are involved with wire crimes on my street and other natures of predicate acts on my street through time from other areas as the people involved. No, it's not personal with me and them. They're fake conversations. They'll tell you themselves. They put everyone in fake changed words. One time for a few days, after my father died, after about a month, I had to leave some time. Then I had to raise my voice and force people to call the police without telling them why. I caught them with all kinds of doing things because I caught them doing bad things. I knew they wouldn't have to lie. So they put me in all kinds of fake conversations with themselves and with others. As people who had been, I caught them before that doing it too. They've been using these locations, little tricks. Of course, in other words, you're going to get them on paper. New York City, please. Someone from New York City, have them hear this video. Get them on paper. The judges switching and forging names. Put their motivations on paper. Get them on. In other words, don't stay in the background listening to fake punks, because that's what spoke for the suburbs, let alone the cities. In other words, how they got away with, yeah, it's everyone at once, and or that person sensed. In other words, follow mandated law. Follow mandated law and get me the name on paper who disbelieves. I want a response for the principal child abuser's confessions, and I want to be separated from the fake words that WFSB pretended on me, and with WTNH, and the locations next to these news locations, and the family members of the journalists involved at Central Connecticut State University and at CCSU, criminally foreign influence users of them, tactically delusions raw too. Make sure they get on paper fast. Go tell Judge Napolitano, fear God to hide these punks. Get them on paper, Judge Napolitano. No one has time to beg for them to have one name in sequence in the branch. And I want a response for the principal child abuser's confessions. Let's go. And the rest of the names involved. And sick things, fear. Who disbelieves.